Thanks everyone for joining us on time. We really appreciate everybody being here for today's webinar, where we will of course be talking about our PGPM program. We will of course be discussing about adaptability skills in today's time, and who better than the director of our soil campus, Gurgaon campus, coming in. A quick preface about Vijaya ma'am, who is an extremely humble person, and more than that, she's having an incredible, illustrious career. Ma'am is a double master's. Ma'am did her master's in organizational behavior. Before that, did her psychology majors. Post that, of course, has also done her PhD, her doctoral thesis in industrial psychology from Madras University. Had an impeccable 27 years of stint with her previous organization in Coimbatore. And over and above ma'am's rich experience as a teacher, trainer, industry consultant, veteran, makes sure that they're getting the best of both worlds. Ma'am's been associated with large business houses to give human resource consulting advice, as well as acted as a career consultant. And that's where most of you will be able to draw benefit from today's webinar. Ma'am has served as a guest faculty to universities abroad, especially in USA, Australia, Germany, to name a few. Ma'am served as an adjunct faculty at the Central Michigan University, at the State University of New York, and of course the list is endless. Ma'am's insightful papers have made sure that there is massive amount of research that goes in. So clearly a veteran, an industry veteran, who's coming and speaking with all of us this evening. Vijaya ma'am, I'll let you spearhead the conversation, and we just wanted to know a little bit more about your take on the PGPM program. And like ma'am's always a master of candid, organic conversations. So everybody, please feel free to post your doubts in the doubts platform as well. Anything that you'd like to ask about your career path currently, or overall any discussion on management, education, adaptability skills, please feel free to put it in the chat box. But ma'am, over to you right now over here. Would love to know your insights, would love to know about your rich experience that you're getting over here on board as a director. And can you please help us understand a little bit, situate a little bit about the PGPM program? Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Neerja, for those very kind words. I don't know how much of that is right about me, but anyway, thank you for that. And good evening to all participants. Yes, I have about 3 decades of experience in higher education, but I must tell you that over the 3 decades that I have been in this field, I have seen this landscape of education going through a drastic change, and more so in the last couple of years. And to be very precise, what we are doing post-COVID is probably very different from what we did pre-COVID. Now, one big learning that COVID has taught us is all familiar models of business that we knew, that we taught in our classes, that we spoke about, are all probably out of the window. They're probably not relevant anymore. Now, so what does that tell people like us? That yes, we are operating in a world which is very, we have moved out of a VUCA. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the concept of VUCA, which is, and it's a term that has come in from the American Army, which is talking about a world which is very volatile, which is very uncertain, changing, and ambiguous. From there, with COVID coming in, researchers felt post-COVID, the mindsets of people, the behavior of the environment, what's happening within and around the people probably has moved the world from a VUCA to a very Barney kind of a world. Barney trying to say, as people, we are very, very brittle, we're very anxious, we are very non-linear in the way things happen, and everything about us is very unpredictable. Now, that is the world that you and I are probably living in. And that is the world that young people like you will actually work on. Now, given that scenario, it is a very clear indication to academicians like us that, yes, what I teach in my classrooms, I know for sure is probably not going to be relevant 2 years from now. Does that mean to say I stop teaching? No. I would still talk about those theories, but what's important is how I teach my students to learn is very important, because we know that the life cycle of all our cognitive understanding is very limited, and we need to constantly learn to remain relevant. So as much as you learn what is relevant today, even more important is you learn to learn. And that is a big part of a management education. So all of you who are going to lead organizations of tomorrow are probably going to be leaders who have to be constant learners. So the MBA journey, yes, 30 to 40% of it is about, the concepts, what exactly is happening now, current, so on and so forth. But a bigger part of that journey is how do you transform your mental spaces? How do you transform your physical spaces so that you probably become more adaptive to whatever is coming around? And why am I saying adaptive? Because the best of brains, neither Harvard nor Stanford nor anybody is sitting anywhere in the world can give you an exact picture of what life is going to be 1.5 years or 2 years from now. We're all making assumptions, right? As much as we thought we got over the COVID, I think Neerja and I, who are sitting in Delhi, probably woke up this morning to the news that 1 in 4 person in Gurgaon is probably having COVID. Now, what does that mean to us? Like somebody like me who's preparing for the graduation ceremony of my current batch, as much as I'm preparing, I'm also having a backup plan saying that, well, tomorrow everything closes down. What do I do next? Now, this is a very new thought process. 2 years ago, when I did a graduation, there was no concept of, do I have an alternative way of doing? So the whole idea is, can I get more evaluative of my situations? Can I have more options? Can I generate different options? And all of this coming from constant learning. So the PGPM program at SOIL that we run 2 PGPM programs. One, first and foremost, let me clarify one thing, that the PGPM program that we run at SOIL is in the Gurgaon campus is a program primarily meant for people with work experience. So the finance, marketing, operations, analytics, these are all specializations which we kind of insist that people should have about 2 years of work experience. We encourage people with experience to come into our HR program also. But given the fact that HR is such a people-oriented work, we are also open to fresh graduates who probably have a social sciences kind of a background, because at the end of the day, it's about working and dealing with people. And that's when we have that leniency in the program. Now, both these programs are 1-year programs, accelerated programs. What somebody would do in 2 years in the MBA program, we do most of it in the 1-year program, for the simple reason that a lot of students who come onto this program would have already worked in the corporate. And you and I know that in the corporate, the deadline is always yesterday. And if you have to work with your deadline as yesterday, you know how much of stress is there, you know how to deal with stress, you know how to cope with it, and you know how to deliver on your deadlines. And that is why we have this accelerated program. So that's the structure of the PGPM program. And it has its own advantages. The fact is you're sitting in a class of, let's say, about 50 people. And 50 people bring in 50 different corporate experiences. So imagine the richness of a class. So if I go into a class of 50 people, I have probably the total experience in the class is way beyond the experience that I have. If I bring with myself 30 years of experience, the class is presenting to me about 50 years of experience. Now that is the richness of the class, the kind of interactions, the kind of discussions, the kind of points of view, the conflict, the ability to look at very diverse points of view is a big part of a PGPM program. And that's how we say it's a program meant for people who are willing to be on their toes, program meant for people who understand or have some experience of what organizations are, what it is to be working, what it is to work against deadlines, and then probably come on to a PGPM program.
Wow, I think you've encapsulated truly well that how the world's shifting, everything is shifting, and how as you're planning for the graduation ceremony, you also have to keep that element of ambiguity that comes from the VUCA to the Bani world transition. Ma'am, help us understand that, you have been the captain of the ship for the 1 year PGP program, and you must have seen certain students. So there's always this question that when we're talking about accelerated learning or capsule sized learning, where professors and veterans like yourselves are making sure that, students get the best, or they get that ability to learn, as you said, because obviously things will get irrelevant, but that ability for, or that drive for continuous learning will always be pervasive. So can you just help us understand what kind of attributes are required for a student who's probably contemplating on such a kind of an accelerated program, or that 1 year PGPM program? So what are the skill sets, the desirable skill sets that if I'm an aspirant, should get on the table to make sure that I will be fully prepared once when I transition out of the program?
Okay, right. Let me start with the basic. If I'm seeing somebody come up right up to a PGPM level, the intellectual ability is not questioned, right? You've gone through an undergrad program, you worked, and so cognitive ability is there. So we're really not here to say, are you a super brain or are you a good? No, none of that. So we know there is the cognitive ability. So I'll let go of the cognitive ability. Over and above the cognitive ability, there are certain attributes that we are looking at. One, are you open to change? In terms of your mindsets, do you have a closed mindset or do you have an open mindset? It's very important that you form your opinions, but you don't get judgmental, because the concept of right and wrong is very, very limited today. So can you kind of be more open to new things, open to new experiences? Can you be evaluative, but not judgmental? Because when I say evaluative, you're looking at it in all its, finesse. But then when you're talking judgmental, you're trying to say good, bad, right, wrong. So can you be out of that mode? We are talking about, like I said initially, people who can constantly learn, because that is the order of the day. Does that mean to say when you come into the program, you don't focus on what we are trying to tell you, but probably just think, oh, I need a job? No, that's not happening. Job is only a consequence of the entire learning that you do over the year. So there is the need to learn, but learning how to learn is a bigger part. And that is why you will see our methodology. In terms of methodology, we have moved out of a chalk and board kind of a teaching methodology to a methodology that is more experiential, a methodology that will push you to think critically, a methodology that will kind of push you out of your comfort zones and put you into those difficult situations where you have to do a lot of inductive and deductive reasoning and arrive at solutions which are probably, oh, wow. I mean, it should surprise you yourself. It might surprise you that, wow, that's very good, that I can think so differently and so divergently. So that's the kind of methodology that, because all these skills are very important. What we also see post-COVID is one big thing that we are talking about, and we're trying to build that in our programs as well, as is resilience. COVID has taught us that you could be the most intelligent person, but given the way the world is, given the way things are so uncertain in the environment, given the demand for adaptability, and given the demand for uncertainty, adaptability and uncertainty going hand in hand will probably push people to believe that they have to be resilient. And that is a big skill that we are talking about. And that is one of the factors that we're also trying to build into our programs. It's, 2 years just before COVID, we were all talking about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is fine, but then more than emotional intelligence, we are talking today about a resilience ability, which is, I know what is right, but can I be there even in a difficult situation and get through the situation? Moving it a step further, we are trying to say emotional intelligence is important, but today we are also moving a step ahead to say spiritual quotient is equally important. When I'm saying spiritual quotient, I'm not talking about going to a mosque or a temple and praying. Spiritual quotient is in your ability to understand yourself, the best possible way. And that is why we're talking about things like wellness, we're talking about yoga, we're talking about journey into yourself. So those are the quotients that we are trying to develop. So very broadly, some of the skills that we are talking at a very cognitive level are ability to think differently, ability to kind of learn differently, ability to infer information differently, ability to deal with a lot of data at a cognitive level. At a very behavioral level, we are talking about resilience, we are talking about ability to deal with uncertainty, ability to change, ability to adapt. At a very emotional level, we are talking about a spiritual quotient, which is, can I be at peace with myself? Can I appreciate myself for what I am? Because if I am not in peace with myself, I'm really not going to be in peace with anybody or anything around me. So those are the broad spectrum of qualities that we think is required to navigate the uncertain world, and the PGPM program, to whatever best of our abilities, we try and build these components into our program.
Wow, that's so well encapsulated. I loved how, ma'am, you walked us through how IQ, the cognitive ability, as you said, we need to let go of the cognitive ability, and even EQ has become obsolete, but AQ, adversity quotient, has become the norm. So that was very beautifully summed up. Whenever we are reading more about you, or when we are interacting, we've seen that you have always said, even in your director's message, that there's a need to capture the best of both worlds, Oriental and Occidental, and even your career, even before this, when we were talking about how largely previously also you've been working, say, on the main project for a certain duration, and then you had that global exposure so that you could get the best practices. Ma'am, there was a question about what do you think, because you know how the global PGPM world works, or the MBA world works, or the management education world is working, to use the correct word. So what do you think are the major changes, and how is the Indian management education adapting to those global changing standards altogether? Do you see that there is a little bit of difference? And how is our PGPM program incorporating some of those global trends in management education that you've been looking at, especially with your rich experience at global universities in USA, Germany, Australia? So what do you think are certain synergies that are matching the Indian management education space?
Okay, great. Now, probably 10 or even 15 years ago, if we spoke about businesses, we would talk about business in India, talk about business in the US, so on and so forth. But then, with more and more companies becoming multinational, with the world becoming a global market, we're really not talking too much in terms of geographic differences, in terms of how markets and people are. Yes, there is the cultural component, but we're seeing a lot of integration in terms of values, right? Now, the current generation that you're so much more closer to the Western culture than the way I am, right? So there is that whole world coming together in terms of integration. So even in terms of business, what is happening is there is one market, one marketplace kind of a phenomena. And so businesses all over the world have certain common expectations from people. Because I no longer can say I will operate only in India, or even if I operate in India, there's some connection to the international world that I have, right? I might probably import a product, I might sell a product, do something. So the world no longer can say I'm very regional specific. In some way or the other, every organization has to do with the world outside. And so the first thing is the geographic silos have gone. So what does that mean to say? If the geographic silos have gone, a big part of my requirement is my ability to understand culture, my ability to integrate in different cultures. And if you can recall, I started by saying, can we be more evaluative and not judgmental? So if I'm being more evaluative, I just understand how my culture is so different from another culture. But if I'm being judgmental, I'm trying to say, well, my culture is good, somebody else's culture is not so good. Now, that is the starting point of trying to say, if global markets have to operate and if we are training leaders to operate in these global environments, we are talking about an unconditional positive regard for people, cultures, and so on. World over, whether it's an Indian adolescent, an American adolescent, or the Chinese adolescent, or even somebody in Iceland, COVID has had the same impact on people. COVID has brought in a change in the mindset. Those 2 years of shutdown has made a big difference to the Gen Alpha that we are talking about, which is going to enter the workforce. And so resilience is something which is absolutely important. Organizations across the world understand that they have to be agile. Organizations by themselves cannot be agile. Organization is made up of people, and people have to be agile for an organization to be agile. So agility requires a huge amount of mental sophistication to remain that agile. And those are some of the qualities that across the world, we are talking about. These are some of the abilities that are required. So to answer your question, I really would not see too much of a difference in terms of what businesses or management education would think is the right thing as an output for the different kind of geographic regions all over the world. We're still talking about very similar outcomes, but depending upon, the nation, the resources, the kind of an institution, their ability to deliver these same outcomes is kind of different on the scale of 0 to 10.
Absolutely. I think the way in the crisp, concise manner, you are trying to make sure that those very important essential ideas of agility, being nimble, and how, again, staying true to your original research of organizational behavior, that how critical the role of human resources is. And ma'am, one more thing that you highlight, you mentioned, which I would love to highlight again, that, how evaluative to judgmental, again, keeping the biases away, which is one of the major things that AI enthusiasts have been saying, that at least artificial intelligence will keep the biases away. There's a question, and this is there in the Q&A section, which is talking about that what is the future of PGPM programs, especially because a lot of times there are these other alternatives to MBA programs that are emerging. And there is an anonymous attendee in the Q&A section who's asking, what is the scope in the future? Because it's a certificate program, even though you've answered that it's teaching you the ability to learn in a very continuously changing world, and continuous learning, being nimble, being agile is the key, and that is what the program will teach you, which is going to be a forever relevant skill set. But still, ma'am, would love to know your insights, that because it is a certification course, there is an anxiety, just like the Q&A section, the doubt has been posted. So what is the future of the PGPM program according to you, and what is the future scope, because it's a certification program?
Right. Now, this is a program that is from SOIL. Now, this program is not approved by the AICTE. This is a program which is born out of support from 30 large corporations, where they felt that yes, management education is able to churn out a lot of managers, but then we probably need leaders. And it is in that moment of insight that they thought we need to create a school with a difference, and thus was born SOIL. SOIL is a heavily industry accepted program, right? Now, there are companies which do not question anything but the fact that it's a SOIL. There is credibility to the SOIL brand in the market, and that is why the program is being offered. But I must say that this is a program which is certified today, and we consciously stayed out of the AICTE approval process. Not that AICTE is bad. We have another campus which does offer an AICTE program. But in this campus, we consciously stayed away because we wanted to create this very agile, nimble program. As changes happen in the market, we are able to bring changes into our program. For example, I myself, in the month of Feb and March, was teaching a course on the future of work. Now, the course on future of work was not there when we built the curriculum a year ago. But then post-COVID, we realized we need to talk about those important issues. And so I was able to just bring it into my course, develop an entire course on the future of work, where we talk about everything, technology to environment, to climate, to politics, and all of that, to see how is that making a difference to work. So we are very happy staying the way it is. But if you think this is a postgraduate program, it is not. If you think you can do a PhD after this diploma, you cannot. But with the new education policy coming in, once you never know how the landscape will change, and this program might get converted into another degree or whatever, we don't know. But as we speak, it is not an AICTE approved program, heavily market recognized. Market appreciates, recognizes, and validates the brand of soil. And that is how this program is conducted. If you're very particular that you want an AICTE approved program, our campus at Manesar, which is offering the PGDM program, it's the conventional PGDM program, which is a 2-year program approved by AICTE. That's a program that you could probably look at. But this, if you are in the industry, spent 2 years, let me tell you the profile of people who come to the program. Typically, a lot of them would be engineers, or probably from the services sector. They have worked on technical stuff for about 2 years, and they feel, I want to shift my gear, right? Then they think, okay, let me come and do a management program, a 1-year program, and then probably move. I'll give you an example of a guy who just, the current batch, he probably finished his engineering, worked in one of the large software companies for 2.5 years. And then in course of that work, he realized, you know what, I'm very good at people. I like working with people. So he's come and done this 1-year HR program with us, and has probably now gone back to a consulting company. An HR consulting role is what he's picked up. So that's the kind of transition that happens in this program. But I will still caution you that this is not an AICTE approved program.
Wow, I think we've also got like one more webinar invite for you, ma'am, on future work that'll that'll trigger an entire new set of questions that we can probably invite you again for that sort of a webinar. And very beautifully said that you can pivot your career, and of course it's you have delineated everything. There is another question which is related only, that is shifting careers easy if somebody has been in the career for 5 years, or will it become very difficult because there are certain skill sets that they've already built during that stint of 5 years? So and if they want to pivot into a new career, what all is required? So this is again a question that has been posted in the Q&A section, that how can one pivot their career, especially if they're coming with prior experience of 5 years, because sometimes it becomes really difficult to unlearn and then restart the learning process. So ma'am, what has your take been, and what is your 3 decades of experience saying that if people are coming with experience, how easy has it been for them to transition?
I must say, as much as I said, the minimum eligibility for the program is a 2-year work experience. The average work experience is about 3 to 3.5 years on the campus. But we do have some people who are there with 5 years. Even in the current batch, I have somebody who has about 10 years of work experience. Now, this person typically comes from a real estate background, a civil engineer, wanting to move into another domain, right? Wanting to move into analytics. So yes, the shift can happen. But what is very important is, the minute they come into the campus, we have something called an individual developmental plan. So we kind of sit down with the candidate right in the first week, trying to understand what their requirements are, what they are looking at shifting in, and why they are into the program. That gives the career services team and the student a fair understanding in terms of what is it that I'm expected to do differently, or the CMS starts thinking, what is it that I should do differently to get this person into the organization or the job role of his choice. So there's a lot of work that happens. So yes, the higher the work experience, higher are the challenges, because you get so set in your mindset, and you're so set in the ways of thought and behavior, which will require a lot of change. It's a lot more effort, I would say, but I would not say it's not possible. We have enough and more instances of people with 5-6 years of experience coming in and wanting to shift a gear. So it's very specific. If the candidate has information to share on what he or she is doing, and if he wants a specific answer to, is it possible with X, Y, and Z experience of 5 years? Do you think I want to do something else? And if he knows what he wants to do, we can always have that conversation.
Right, absolutely. There is, of course, before we let you go, there is a question, and this question is asking about what is the key difference between the 1-year and the 2-year program. As ma'am, you were mentioning at the beginning that there are 2 campuses, one is the Gurgaon and the other Manesar campus. And the student is asking, will they learn the same subjects? And to even add, there was a question that we received ever since we informed students that we'll be having the webinar with you, which is almost aligned to this, that what do you think are the new tick box subjects, like data analytics or product or marketing? So what are those essential subjects that a management aspirant or somebody who wants to transition and start working in companies should definitely have a keen idea about? So one is, of course, like, are the programs going to be similar, the 1 and the 2-year programs, and will the subjects be largely similar? And the second one, like, what are the subjects that a person should definitely learn, provided when they're trying to make sure that they start working in companies post their management education?
Okay. I'll take your first question first, which is talking about the difference between the MBA and the PGPM program. MBA is a program that is offered at the Manesar campus. MBA MBA and PGDM are now used interchangeably, but at the Manesar campus, we still offer the PGDM, because in the Indian education system, only a university and, of course, the IIMs can give an MBA degree. Standalone institutions offer what is called a PGDM. The PGDM is equivalent to an MBA, right? So at the Manesar campus, we have an AICTE approved 2-year PGDM program. This PGDM program is open to freshers, right? Now, what happens in the Gurgaon campus is we offer a PGPX program. We call it PGPX because it's meant for people with work experience. The subjects are primarily the same, but how are we able to deliver 2 years in 1 year is very simple. For example, I teach organizational behavior. And if I'm probably talking about, let's say, performance management, and I go into a PGDM class, I need to start from the basics. What is an organization? What is an HR? So on and so forth. But when I come into a PGPX class and I say performance management, immediately there's a bell ringing for all of them, because they would have done at least 2 cycles of performance management. They know it. And so my ability to pitch my presentation at a much higher level is possible because I don't have to tell them the basics. I probably move them on to the higher level of learning because the basics they have already experienced. And so that's how what I would deliver in, let's say, 40 hours in a PGDM program, I will probably deliver in about 20 to 25 hours in a PGX program. So that's primarily the difference between the 2 programs. Your second question, and so yes, the subjects are primarily the same, whether you do a PGDM or you do a PGX, you still specialize in finance, marketing, operations and stuff like that. And of course, we have a dedicated program for HR. Now, we are constantly in the process of upgrading our curriculum, because end of the day, our curriculum has to deliver skills that are industry relevant. And we all know that the entire world is moving towards technology. The entire world is moving towards data. Whether you're talking about marketing or you're talking about HR, as much as HR is a people function, even in HR, you have to know tech. Even in HR, you have to understand data. And you probably have to make decisions based on data. It doesn't matter what you're doing, which aspect of or which domain in business you're doing. And so, and the most recent thing is the digital transformation that we are all talking about. So if you look at the curriculum from last year to this year, what we're going to offer in 23 and 24, there's a whole lot of emphasis on technology. There's a lot of emphasis on data. Doesn't matter whether I'm doing finance, marketing, or HR, the basics of AI, ML, the basics of a metaverse, basics of cloud, digital transformation, those are all courses that are taught. The basic skills are taught, things like Tableau, Power BI, which is all very basic. As a manager, you will have to use those tools to kind of make your presentations. You will have to use those tools to enhance your decision-making ability. All of that is built into the program. So with whatever is changing in the environment, we make changes in the syllabus. And today, some of the big things, which is an ask from any leader, is can you understand tech? Or can you use tech? Can you probably understand data? And can you get into a digital transformation mode? And all of that we built into the program. Hello?
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, I think Nisha is facing a few internet issues, so she, I think, logged out. I'll take over from here. Ma'am, there's another question that a student has asked. That's you said the way of learning is more advanced in PGPM program. So the roles that come for placements also are different from PGDM. They're basically asking if the roles that come for PGDM are different for PGPM, or it's the similar kind of roles that come?
I think the answer is both yes and no. Some roles come which are different. Some roles come which are similar. But then, like, for example, a project manager, you can start off with 1 year, you can be 10 years into project management. So the roles might be the same, but the levels of the roles that you're performing will vary depending upon the kind of work experience. So I think it's a very yes and no. There are some jobs that come exclusively for people with work X, some jobs come exclusively for the fresher. But if there is a role which is open to both people, freshers and work experience, people with work experience are probably absorbed at a higher level.
Absolutely. As once you were only saying that the market for people with experience, the job market is always there, but for freshers, of course, there are certain time zones. Ma'am, before we let you go, there's one interesting question that has come, and this is, of course, you've been working very, very closely with looking at the career support and the career management as well at the Gurgaon campus. So there is a question that is asked in the Q&A section about if the course is largely similar, are the placements also largely similar, or are there a different pool or category of companies that come in?
Nirja, when you actually blocked out, ma'am already took care of that question.
Okay, perfect. I'm so sorry. I think we got dropped off at the 1 second.
No, it's okay. We took care of it.
Okay, perfect. Great. Thanks so much, ma'am. And before we let you go, any last minute thoughts, any last minute comments that you'd like to probably just share with us before we let you go?
Yeah, it's I would only say that career is not in the subjects that you do. Careers and jobs are typically dependent on what you can deliver. Your degrees are probably just a medium, a foot in the door kind of a thing. But then once you get into the door, it's for you to perform. So as much as these academic qualifications will give you a foot in the door, please remember that this will not take you to the top. So you need a blend of both cognitive, behavioral, and emotional components working together if you want to make an impact, if you want to kind of, reach where you want to reach, and, if you want to be successful in whatever way it means to you, because success to me is a very relative term. But generally, to be successful, I think you will have to have all your antennas up. So don't look at the MBA program or the PGX program as just as a vehicle for a job, which is typically a consequence of your experiences. So look at studying or doing a program that you like. Look at doing something that you enjoy, because for the next 25, 30 years, if you have to day in and day out do the same thing, I think you owe it to yourself that you give yourself a good time. So take your time, think, enjoy, and believe that what you're doing is the best thing for you, and only then make a decision.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, ma'am, for in a very conversational way walking us through the most critical aspect of being adaptable, and of course giving us a glimpse of the changing work world. We really look forward to probably circling back and probably culling out more details about your course on the future of work very soon. But thank you so much, and thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you, Aishwarya, for putting this together, and we hope to see you physically very soon in the Manchester campus as well, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, Neerja. Thank you, Aishwarya, for having this wonderful conversation with me. And thank you, dear participants. I'm hoping to see some of you on board in either of our campuses.
Sure,
Thank you
ma'am.
so much.
Thank you.